Hello everyone, I'm Emmalena, and today I'm going to go on a completely sane, stable, and hinged rant about Silent Hill: The Short Message. I'm going to try to be fair and as positive as possible, but if you guys have played the game or seen many of the videos trashing it, I'm sure you know that this was not a positive or fun experience at all for me. As someone who's been playing the Silent Hill franchise since I was literally 12, the first one came out in like 98, and I played it in, or maybe it was 99, but I was like 12 or 13 when I played this game. I was 15 when I played Silent Hill 2. And Silent Hill 3, 17, and Silent Hill 4, I think it was like 18 or 19. So those are my favorite Silent Hills, right? The first four, right? And I grew up with this franchise. Of course, I'm worried about the remakes. Ascension was absolute ass. We all know that. Ass Ascension, if you will. And I'm worried about the Silent Hill 2 remake because Blooper Team, yes, Blooper Team, because they were a fucking mistake, is not going to handle the subject of mental illness well. We all saw what they did with the medium, so I am extremely worried about what they're gonna fucking do with Silent Hill 2. That said, the Silent Hill 2 remake isn't for me anyway because they changed it to over-the-shoulder camera, and I'm just a big whiny bitch when it comes to stuff like that, and I don't like over-the-shoulder camera. So automatically, it's something that is going to be in the bin. However, I think a lot of the hatred being thrown towards Silent Hill 2 is unwarranted, to be honest, and I think a lot of the hatred being thrown towards Silent Hill right now is because people hate Konami so fucking much, and that makes sense. I hate Konami too. However, I think we should try to give these new games a chance. I'm gonna play Silent Hill 2. I joke with my Discord community all the time that I'm gonna hate play it, but I am going to play it and see what happens. Who knows? Maybe I'll like it. But now, let's get on to the short message. So first I'll start with my positive thoughts going in. I was truly terrified when I first began this game. The atmosphere was creepy as hell, and the first thing I saw was this black, spiral thing on the wall that definitely looked like the remnants of a ritual that had been done, and I believe that was the correct interpretation. So, let me just list out the things I think that they did right. The way the character opens and closed doors in this game was extremely uncanny and unsettling. The way that the doors closed a couple of seconds after you opened them and walked into a room also unsettled me and was definitely intentional game design because it had me turning around and checking every single time. The mural that's on the wall in front of the first room you go into scared me twice. I walked by it and it scared me, and then when I opened the door and saw it there, it scared me. The first 15-20 minutes of the game, I was truly terrified. I was actually like, holy shit, this is actually a scary horror game, right? Another thing I really liked was reading the journal entry that was obviously written by the main character in the trash room, and there were these trash bags that seemed to breathe, and I remember getting this feeling that, she'd thrown this away because she didn't want to think about it. In her mind, she didn't want to think about these things. And this was glimpses of old school Silent Hill subtlety, by the way. The trash bags breathing reminded me of a baby or something being thrown in there, and it harkened back to the early imagery I saw of baby dolls covered in blood, and which made me think there's child abuse going on here. Eventually you get to the point where you realize this girl was abused by her parents, or her mother specifically, and I'm not going to get into all the details of that. But what I will explain is that I didn't think the reveal was necessarily done bad, but how we got there was very painful, and not in a good way. So, the chase sequences are really the biggest problem with this game. Instead of having real combat or allowing the character to defend herself, she's reduced to basically a pathetic little puppet who has to run for her life through these mazes that are incredibly difficult to navigate for someone like me because my memory sucks and I don't know how to, I don't think creatively enough for these chase sequences. Let's be real. I just kept going in a circle until Josh pointed out that there was another way for me to go, and I'm like, oh, huh, interesting. Or that he also pointed out that I had to circle back at certain points, and eventually I just gave up altogether with these chase sequences and just had him finish them for me, because, I don't know, I don't like chase sequences. A lot of people are saying that this game is very much a PT ripoff, and yeah, they're in the same series, so I'm not gonna say it's a ripoff, but it's really, dude? Really, Konami? You guys fire the guy and then you're just hey, let's try and emulate exactly what he did, but badly? Why? So, one thing that a lot of people were worried about is it taking place outside of Silent Hill. I am not worried about that. What I'm worried about is the game reducing Silent Hill to a fucking syndrome and over-explaining to me what it means and, what the fog symbolizes and what happens and how it happens and why it happens. It symbolizes, the isolation, the loneliness, the depression. I'm why are you hitting this shit on the head, though? The lack of subtlety was like overwhelming. It got to the point where I assumed I was being made fun of by the devs. I believe I was watching somebody review this game and they called it trauma tourism. And yeah, that's what it feels like. As someone who came from an abusive household and didn't have exactly the best relationship that one could have with their parental units, I can tell you right now that this game kind of just like casually touches on very serious subject matter, and it almost like jokingly does it. It's like Roadhouse funny, which is the worst kind of funny. And if you haven't seen Roadhouse, go fucking watch it. It's hilarious for all the wrong reasons.
Can I buy you guys a drink? Guess not.
Why did they use the same old bullying tropes? I wish I was never born, loser, fat, liar, idiot, etc., etc. These are all the same old boring tropes that we see over and over again in media about bullying, and it doesn't make any sense, especially given that the game decided to touch on cyberbullying. Cyberbullying is way worse these days, and I feel like they should have doubled down on that, showing how kids will just be completely ruthless to you if you're not sexy enough on social media, if you don't have enough likes or follows, because that's a real thing that kids face today. They also should have talked about the fact that kids can't socialize normally anymore due to social media. There could have been so many things that they touched on. So after all of this criticism, one thing I will say is that I realize the game just isn't for me. I'm 37 or 38, I don't even know how old I am, but this game is made for teenagers. It's made for young adults and teenagers. And perhaps the unsubtlety and the lack of depth and anything like that is just how games are made today. Editor Elena here. I just wanted to clarify something. No, I don't think all games are made poorly today, but what I mean is that the unsubtlety in writing, the infuriating chase sequences, those things are things that the younger generation, younger gamers are used to. But me, being almost 40, I'm not used to those things. So looking at that from the outside and going, okay, well, they don't mind this stuff. It's because it's made for them. It's like Alan Moore said. He regrets making The Watchmen because he said it turned a bunch of grown adults into babies, crying and whining over something that was made for children. And he's absolutely right. These games are made for kids. They're made for teenagers, and a lot of times younger than that. And with Silent Hill, it's got very mature content. But if you're trying to explain or teach an important lesson to young people between the ages of, say, 13 and 18, then maybe being unsubtle and over the top is okay. That's just something I wanted to point out. But I know that my expectations are basically beneath the floor for anything Silent Hill. So I was disappointed, but not surprised. Well, I have some afterthoughts. Art is important, and Silent Hill as a franchise is definitely art. The message this game was trying to give makes sense. It's addressing trauma, bullying, depression, and real-world issues kids deal with. And those things are a lot worse now thanks to social media. Again, this game failed to really confront that, but it did mention it. It tried. I think the chase sequences make sense in a symbolic manner, but they just don't translate well into gameplay for a gamer like me. I prefer combat, or having the chase sequences be more meaningful, really. They didn't really seem to be meaningful outside of the symbolic nature of them. What I prefer is a game that takes its gameplay and its themes and mushes them together to make something beautiful. Refer to Nier Automata if you want to know what that looks like when it's done well. The reason these chase scenes seem kind of perfect is because the protagonist is obviously running from her trauma, which is a big no-no in Silent Hill. And another thing, there is something to be said about times when the world is basically on fire and the subtlety of art is lost. Being unsubtle and over the top when the world is drowning could be the correct way to go about this. Perhaps the subtle screaming of artists just hasn't been working. Perhaps artists need to scream much louder and be much more in your face about the realities all around us. Am I sure about this? No, but it is worth thinking about. Thanks for watching. Why can't you allow any subtlety to exist? There is a part in this game where this girl walks up to her locker and she says, "Why is this locker locked? There must be something in there I don't want to see." Subtlety, right? Like, what happened to it? Is it just gone? Is it just doesn't fucking exist anymore?